Hi guys. I think my screen is I'm not visible on the camera, right? Or am I?
It is. It is. Your camera is not visible. The screen
Alright.
that you're sharing is visible.
Alright, I did turn on my camera. I don't know where. Alright. My camera will be off for today. I guess it's not working somehow. Alright. So welcome back guys. So did you get a chance to go through all the portfolios? Whatever I've sent it in the group. Did you start working on it?
Yeah, man.
Alright. Everyone? Perfect then. So today we'll be starting with branding. Do you have any doubt related to portfolios? Like proper direction is very clear to you as to where do you want to start? Any doubt regarding it? No? All right. If there is any doubt, please reach out to me. Even if you have made your portfolio half, you can send it on me on WhatsApp and I'll guide you that how can you make it much more better. All right. So let's proceed with the class for today, which is going to be about branding. I think in the very first class that we had of the live session, I might have asked you a question that what do you think came first, branding or marketing? Did I ask this question?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what is the answer to it?
Branding first, then marketing.
All right. And why is that?
Because you have to have a brand to which you can market, and purpose of marketing is to make your brand reach a wider audience. But if you don't have
Hmm.
a brand and don't have a strategy of branding, then you cannot market your product itself.
Right, very rightly said. So, branding is actually your message, and marketing is how are you conveying that message, right? So, whenever I talk of marketing itself, there are a lot of subcomponents to it: digital marketing, social media marketing, email marketing, and all those things. But when I talk of branding, your USP, your value mission statements, your competitors, your audience, your logo, the story that you have, right? All those things comes into branding. So first, we have to be very clear on the message that why exactly your company is there and what is your purpose, right? So that is one thing that you have to very clear out. And then moving forward, we will try to actually communicate our message in different formats, right? So for that particular purpose, we use marketing. So sometimes there are different ways to communicate. A lot of the brands, some brands are very sincere when it comes to their marketing, some brands are very friendly when it comes to marketing, some brands are a mix of both, right? So different personas they have actually adopted for their brand itself, right? So that is what we're going to study about, that what are different archetypes that different brand follows. All right. So let's just talk about a little on the branding part. So as I told you that it's a message, and branding is something that you don't change frequently. Marketing is whereas very dynamic in nature. It changes very frequently. But once you decide that this is what you're going to logo and title, it's going to be like for that for years. Why is that? Because you want people to remember you as that, right? And if you keep frequently keep it changing, you would not be able to develop a brand, right? So that's why the very initial stage this kind of things are very important, right? Then whenever you're thinking of branding, also ask the what questions to you, right? So what feeling that people have for you, what you are, what makes you unique, what people are saying about you, what you want to achieve, what do you value, what are you saying, what do you look like, right? All these questions needs to be answered first as a brand, right? What I would suggest to you and what I used to do with my client is that I used to ask this kind of questions to my client, right? First thing is that I used to prepare based on the secondary data and whatever the information they've given to me, I used to answer these questions to myself first, and then I used to ask my client that what do you feel about all those things, right? That is only way, because as a business owner they might have already thought of these questions before, right? They know that what is their long term goal is, and if you want to align your marketing strategy with that, you have to be on the same page as they are, right? So if there is a problem that you're facing, like if you feel like that the questions are not aligning and all whatever it is, please do ask those questions to themselves, like how would you approach these things and all those things. That is when your marketing communication will be very clear, right? So this is what branding is, and then marketing is that how are you communicating that message, how are you writing that message, right? So branding focus on the what part, and marketing is the how part of it, that what is the source that you're using, how are you delivering it, right? So what are the channels that you will be using to communicate that message, right? So all these things, it's gonna fall into the marketing part of it. All right, now let's move to something which is called a branding structure. Just a second. Yes, Geet, go ahead.
I had a question that whether as a digital marketer or a consultant or anyone in this field with expertise, uh,
Hmm.
I mean, how can you, when you work with a client that is a brand or that is a company, how
Hmm.
can you build, like, how can you help them in the branding? Because I think, and I mean, I could be wrong, but
Hmm.
branding is something that is kind of a legacy that you have put forward with you working over the years, like the luxury brands like Louis V,
Hmm.
Ralph Lauren, all of them have a certain branding that people associated with them to luxury almost anytime they hear the name. So they have not,
Hmm.
have they done it? Have they had a strategy of branding, or it happened over the years because of the prices are high, so they're considered luxurious or something like that?
Right. So, the thing is, from the very initial stage, you have to think about all these things, that what is your long-term goal is, right? So, for if you talk about the luxury brands, from the very start, they had this strategy that they are targeting the premium sector. They are not targeting a very niche market, and they're not targeting where the price range is low, right? From the very initial start, the positioning was very clear to them that they're the luxury sector they're targeting, the premium market they are targeting. So from the very start itself, whatever the messaging that was there, whatever the crowd that we're attracting was only those people. So marketing was done only on those platforms and channels, right? Wherever they could appeal to the premium audience. Now, what happens usually with the brand is that when they try to initially start a brand to actually earn the short term profits, they sort of lose the brand identity. For example, if there is a brand which is a very luxurious brand, and at the very initial start, right, they feel like the profit is not coming because it's targeting this sector. So they make their products a little cheaper, or let's say accessible to all the people. Their branding gets diluted there, right? So when you as a marketer, where do you come into play? You have to actually make your client picture this thing, that this is what it's going to cost you, right? So if you're, let's say, targeting a premium sector, this is what your strategy would be, and actually work on those strategies. Like, it just working for a mere 1 or 2 month would not reap you any results. At least for a year you have to be that way. From there only you can tweak things here and there a little, right? And then you can proceed with it. So you will have to actually help your client envision that. But before you help your client envision that, you have to be very clear on your strategy part itself, that this is what my audience is. That is when the buyer persona comes into play. So whenever a client is coming to you, you have to make sure that whatever the idea they have, firstly they have started their business with some research itself. There might be some spoke for the like the scope for that particular business. You also do your research really well. See that where is the scope, what is the gap that particular market is having, who are my target audience that is there. Based on that, decide on your USP, that this is where you can position yourself into, and that is where you can become a market leader, right? And from the very start itself, target that particular area, target that particular niche, and move ahead with that, right? Now, uh, again, I'm going to repeat on that point. Just because of some short term profits and gain, do not dilute your brand identity over there, right? So if you've decided a strategy, work with that strategy, even if it's not reaping any results. Just 6 months to see if it's working or not. Then only proceed with it. I hope I was able to answer that, Geet. Any further questions
Yeah,
on this?
ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. So then let's talk about branding structure. So, as you asked this particular question, that how do we develop the brand as well, right? So there are two areas that you focus on. First is the internal branding, and second is the external branding. Now, internal branding is something that actually holds a lot of value to you when you're working in an organization, to the founders of the company, and to the stakeholders of the company, right? So it's very essential, it's a very core thing that you do, right? And external branding is something that is visible to your customers, the external stakeholders that you have, right? So let's suppose you're starting a business, right? Let's say, Geet, you have an idea, you want to start up a business, right? Who is the first person you would go to tell your idea?
If assuming that I'm of this age, someone that who could lend me some money to start that idea or a business, or sorry, not maybe a consultant who is a business consultant, whether this idea is solid for a company and start to market.
All right. Okay, business. But what about father and mother? Would you go that, okay, I have an idea. Do I have a permission to start this business? Would you go with,
Yeah,
right? You would ask them this question. Now, when you say that you want to start a business to your father or mother, what is the question they will ask you? What is the counter question they will ask you?
do you really want to do it? Or of course, because they will have this genuine question. It is a age of, yeah, where you have passing interest. So is it a part of it, or are you really passionate of doing it?
Right. Let's suppose they're really like a supportive parents as well, right? So they support your idea, right? Now, how would they encourage you? Like, how would they ask you questions? They would ask you okay, what is the long-term purpose? Where do you see yourself doing that, right? Why are you starting this thing? Right? They would also ask you this question,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So those are the people who actually care about your business, right? So they'll ask you all these questions, right? What is the purpose? Why are you here for? What is your mission? What is your vision, right? And what is, now once you answer this question, internal communication, because those are the things that actually helps. For example, if you are able to answer all these four questions really well, your purpose, mission, values, your dad might give you the funds, right? If you're able to answer these questions really well, your employees will work for your company, right? Because whenever you are trying to make a person work for your company, they have their own agendas as well. At the same time, you have to align your agendas with their agendas as well in order for them to work, right? So you have to be very extremely smart on this, that your internal communication should be very clear so that you can attract a lot of stakeholders to your company, right? Now, how would you do that? Once you've decided on your purpose, your mission, then you'll come to your competitors, that you're going to see, you're going to gauge that what is the market, right? Who are my competitors? How am I different from them? Who are my target audiences, right? Once you answer this question, your brand will get a very unique identity, right? If you talk about Swiggy and Zomato as a brand, right, sometimes like they have their own personality, right? So if like a a very friendly marketing they have, right? Or whenever you see their notification also, you sort of feel it's relatable, it is kind of part of your life as well, right? So you answer those questions really well, and then you move to the brand personality part of it. This is the part that is going to help you market your brand personality part. All right. Now talking about the externals, so this is once you answer your internal branding, your logo will be created, your colors will be created. Let's say your personality is very sincere, you might go for very sincere tones of colors and fonts, right? Logo might be aligning with that, your tagline, name, story will all be aligning to that, right? So first, your internal communication needs to be clear. Let's talk about it one by one. So when I talk of purpose, what do I mean? If you have to answer this question, if you have to ask your clients, as in this question, that if you have to keep all your money aside, why are you doing this particular thing, right? That is going to actually help you learn about the higher purpose of a brand, right? Then comes your mission vision statement, that where do you see yourself in future after 10 to 20 years? Where do you envision a brand, right? Now let me tell you guys, vision are not very realistic in nature by itself, because if your vision is very realistic, you will achieve that vision in 20 years. Then what would you do as a brand, right? So visions are a little bit unrealistic, and it should feel like an aspiration to a lot of people, so it could be that way, right? But nothing is impossible again. So what is your mission? What are the steps that you're taking to accomplish that particular vision? That is what you're going to talk about. Then what is the value that you inherent in your brand, right? So are you very honest as a brand? Are you very transparent as a brand, right? So based on your industry, for example, if I talk about food industry, transparency is something that is really appreciated in that industry. So if that is the value that you're holding, then obviously it's going to give you a very unique position in the market, right? So depending on your industry, or depending upon the values that you as a company hold, you can have those things. Now once you answer this question, you can really play on marketing over here, right? Then comes the USP part of it. So how are you different from your competitors, right? So if a brand like you exists, like for example, if there's a A brand and there's B brand and there is no difference in the two, then you would not be able to set your brand apart. So there has to be one unique positioning. Now there is a very quick way to find out a unique positioning for your brand. If you want to do that, figure out all the competitors that you have, right? See their feedback, see the reviews that the customers are giving them, right? For let's take an example for hotel chain, right? You go to the Google reviews, see what is the review, what is the customer has to say about those particular brands, figure out the pain points, figure out all the bad reviews that they're getting, right? See that where exactly you could possibly work on. Do this for 10 to 20 competitors that the brand might have, right? And then you will be able to actually figure out your position, and then only you will be able to stand apart from all those people, right? Then comes your audience. So be very clear on that who exactly your target audience is, right? So let's say, let me give you an example. Can a 10-year-old order from Zomato and order food,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, mm,
Yeah, if they have access to phone, they know technology, they can order it, right?
yes.
All right. Can a 2-year-old be consumer of Zomato? Like, when your parents are ordering food for that particular person, can it be consumed by that particular person itself,
Hmm. Not by. No.
right? So they can consume. What I'm trying to differentiate over here is that just because a particular person is consuming your product doesn't mean you have to advertise to that particular person, right? A 2-year-old person is definitely consuming the services of Zomato, but is that particular person taking an action on that particular thing? They are not, right? That is when you differentiate your audience. Who is the person who is ordering? Usually, the audience will be 18, or let's say 14, worst case scenario. 14 to, let's say, 55 years old people. That would be the age group for you. So you have to understand between two things. That first is who is consuming your product, and secondly, are they playing a very important role in that buying decision? For example, if I talk about chocolates as a brand, right? The consumers are kids, right? But who is the person who is making that purchase? The parents, right? So that is how you have to align your marketing to. In the case of Zomato, you would be appealing mostly to the parents part, right? But when you're marketing your, let's say, chocolates or kids brand, then you will be appealing to the kids part. Why? Because the kids are gonna actually tell their parents to buy this particular product for them. So where you would advertise yourself? You would advertise yourself onto the places where kids are watching. For example, any shows, any TVs, right? And you will be most probably using the colors that is actually going to appeal to kids. Are you getting my point on this?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sanya and her, okay, perfect. And then moving towards personality. So we're going to learn about voice and personality a little later. We're going to delve deeper into it. Let's move to external branding. So few things you have to focus on is that your content should always to be relatable to your customer, right? And whatever that you're creating, be very consistent with it so that the person remembers you. So if you say color red, you will remember Zomato. If I say color yellow, probably remember McDonald's, right? So that is how you have to actually make sure that be very consistent with it so the person remembers you actually. Nextly, humanize your brands, right? Have a personal element to it. That is when content marketing comes into play. All right. And lastly, remember that you cannot serve everyone. Check where your market is, where your broader audience lies. Let's say you cannot target 100% of your audience every time, but what you can do, you can target 80% of your audience if it's a broad audience. Try to do that, okay? Or possibly you can segment your audience and run your advertisement according to that, or run your offers according to that, right? Then comes your logo, your taglines, your name stories, and all those things. So whenever you are doing these things, make sure these four things are in check. All right. Then let's move towards the brand archetype. Now, this is when actually we actually try to humanize our brand, and we sort of relate a person's archetype to a brand's archetype, right? So when I say a hero, what are the qualities and the traits that you see in a hero? How would you describe a hero as?
Mm, uh, courage, victory, something like that. I mean,
Courage.
it's the best
Yeah,
person.
best of the best, courage, victory, and all those things, right? Now, when you see, can you think of a particular brand? Do the brands actually try to show a hero image of people? Does it happen? Do you see it in advertisement as well?
Sports brands,
Sports,
Adidas,
yes,
Nike.
yeah, they definitely try to do that, right? So what they are using the brand archetype, which is actually the hero archetype, right? And that is the people they are actually targeting, right? So if you see the advertisement of Nike, right, their slogan is just do it. And if you see the whole marketing page of Nike, it's filled with athletes who have actually represented their hero nature there, right? So that is what the brands actually imbibe, and that is generally what the sports culture itself is, right? So that is why a lot of the times you see this kind of archetype, and this is the kind of archetype that really works there. So all the storytellings, all the marketing that has been done is based on the hero archetype. Am I clear? Okay. Then comes the explorer archetype. So if you see any camera related advertisement, so GoPro could be there, Sony could be there, right? So those are the people actually they moved into this kind of things, this kind of archetype. So when I say explorer, adventure, curious mind is something that comes into your mind, right? So if your brand or if your product actually, you know, uh, make sure that this kind of for example in sort of travel agencies also is there, right? So if some or the other way, if you're making your customer feel those kind of like small elements of it, right, then you fall under the explorer archetype, right? So what you have to figure out for your client as well is to see that what is the archetype that that you comes under, right? And then see the advertisement of other brands who falls in the same archetype, and see that how they are doing their storytelling, so that you can exactly replicate, not exactly replicate, but can get some inspiration from that, right? If you do it for 10 to 50, 10 to 20 brands, what is going to happen? You're going to create something totally different of your own, right? So try to do those things, try to figure out the archetype that they have. Another come is the sage. Sage by itself means lot of knowledge and wisdom. So when I say all this kind of things, what comes to your mind? National Geographic or possibly Discovery Channel, right? So those are the archetype that comes into picture. If I say the lover archetype, probably a perfume brand would come into your mind, or probably some cosmetic, probably some lingerie, right? So those come under this particular type. So the Victoria's Secret could be an example of a lover archetype over here. Then, if I move further ahead into it, jester. Now, if I was talking about kids, right? See the advertisement of it. I hope everybody knows Eminem or possibly Gems, right? So, their archetype is jester. By jester, what it means, it's something which is very playful, something which is very humorous, something that actually, grabs your attention, right? So, usually, jester archetypes works really well in the kids section, right? Now see their advertisement. If a kid saw this advertisement, they probably will tell their parents that get this particular thing for me, right? So this is a gesture archetype that actually works for the kid segment part of it, right? Then comes the creator archetype. So if you know Lego, I mean, if you might have played Lego as well, right? So this particular creator archetypes falls under those picture. So whenever you try to start something from scratch, or whenever there is some sort of creativity, imagination is involved, that is when you use the creator archetype. All right. Are you getting it? All right. Then comes the caregiver. So if I say the word caregiver itself, the first picture that comes to your mind probably your parents, or first will be like your mother, right? That is when Johnson and Johnson comes into play. If you see the advertisement of Johnson and Johnson itself, they target the mother, not actually the babies, right? Because the mother is the main target audience, not the babies, right? Babies are just going to consume it, but the person who's going to make that buying decision, right, will actively be involved in buying is the mother. right? That is when the caregiver kind of archetype comes into play, right? Then comes the rebel archetype, right? So rebel is usually disruptive, like all the here you can use your the adventure sports, right? All the bikes, all the cars will actually comes into here, the rebel archetype, right? Rebel archetype can also come under, like you might have seen the ads of thumbs up and all those, right? Coke. So that could also fall under the rebel archetype itself, right? Then comes
Tires,
sorry.
tires advertisements.
Yes, tires as well. Even Red Bull would also come under this thing, right? So that is what, and that is what their target audience is like as well. If you see it, right, you will be able to picture the person consuming it. Then comes the magician archetype. So usually your Disney Channel will actually comes into play here, right? So anything that is visionary, anything which is like mysterious, anything which is transformative will fall under the magician archetype over here. All right. Am I clear with this? All right. Then this was your archetypes that you had, right? So when you try to work with a particular company or a brand, figure out what their brand archetype is. It need not be one archetype. It could be a mix of two archetype as well, right? See the possible competitors, work on the research part of it, and then you will be good to go, right? Then comes the personality of it. Now we're going to set the personality for your brand. So usually we divide it into particular part. First is with sincerity or sincerity, right? So this is when your brands like your banks will come into play, right? So whenever you see their advertisement as well, or if you see their fonts as well, it's gonna be very sincere, right? So all the fonts they'll be using is very subtle, right? Then comes sophistication. So a lot of your luxury brands will actually come into here, right? So that is when you can do this particular thing. One example, I like one particular part I would like to tell you. So when you think of personality of your brand, let's say if you're working in a food sector, right? Doesn't mean that it's only reserved for that particular sector. Or let's say if you're working for a clothes sector, it's not reserved for that, right? For example, if you're working in a luxury brand, right? So luxury, you're working particularly in a clothes sector, right? Doesn't mean that your competitors, like for inspiration, you will be looking at only clothes section, right? You can look at any luxury brands for that matter to see that how different they're advertising it from the normal brands, right? So that is when you differentiate yourself into it. Not exactly would be looking, because what is going to happen if you're working in a clothes sector and you're already looking at the luxury like the brands which is related to the clothes sector. What is going to happen? You might copy their content. You might actually just copy paste it. You won't create something new. But whereas if you see all the other luxury brands, you will come with a creative idea to actually start something new. All right. Then come ruggedness. So your all the outdoorsy things that is gonna come here. So your sports will come here. Your energy drinks might also come here. Right. Energy drink will also come into the excitement sector as well. Right. So excitement and the ruggedness could be actually like two kinds of personality you could have as a brand. Right. Then comes the competence of it. So that is when your all the service related brands will actually come here, right? So if you are also working with, let's say, a CA or someone, that could also be your brand archetype here, right? Or any sort of law firm that you're working with, that is also could be your brand archetype over here, sorry, personality over here. Then comes brand story. So there's one very important thing: every story have a hero. So you as a brand also needs to have a hero. There could be four kind of heroes that you could have into your brand. First is your company itself. Your company is solving a very bigger problem. Second is your the founding person of the company. He is actually like you know had nothing, built everything from scratch. He could be the hero of your organization. Second could be employees. For example, there's a Papa brand which actually employs a lot of women from the rural area, right? So that is their hero story for them, right? And then comes your external like stakeholders who are actually who you are helping out, right? So that could be your hero. Now I'll give you an example. It's not a thumb rule that you have to follow, but it generally works like that way, and how you actually meet your customer, right? And that is what you have to figure out in your story itself, right? So it's a story of a person called Mark, all right? And what he wants from life is that he wants to have a very flexible lifestyle, and he has realized that with job he cannot do that. He has to start a business of his own. But what you have realized is that he doesn't have formal business education to start a business, right? Now that is when your company, your brand comes into play. You're a person who is selling a course on business, right? How to start up a business, or probably an online course related to it, right? Now this is Mark, and how you gonna meet Mark, and how you as a brand has to help him solve his problem. First thing you have to make sure as a brand is that, is your customer aware about his problem statement or not? Because a lot of the times customer is not aware about this is where the problem is, right? So for example, let me give you an example over here. So let's suppose you are getting very low marks in your 12th standard or 10th standard, right? So actually, not the problem is not that you're getting a very low marks, but the problem actually is into your habits itself, right? Probably you're not able to align your habits really well. Probably you're not able to focus well, right? Or probably you're using too much of your phone, right? So you have to make sure that your customer is aware about this particular problem, not that I'm scoring a less marks, but the inner problem of it. That is when the customer is actually going to search for you, right? And that is when you're going to meet that particular person, or introduce your brand. So what is happening was that he was aware about his problem, right? And when he was scrolling and finding answers to it, he found your brand, that you are selling a course. Now he's facing some issues with it. What is the issue that he's facing? He's a person who is actually not sure that how the online system works. He's already seen the traditional education system, so he's finding it very hard to trust your brand. Now you as a brand, what is going to you will be doing, you're going to help him solve his problem. By doing so, like, you will be actually reassuring him, that you will be reassuring him how, with your previous clients that you have served, with the results of your previous clients, by telling him that in case you need anything, we're going to be available 24/7, right? So that is how you're going to actually develop that trust with your customer. And then what is going to happen, you can actually make them envision your results as well, right? So how are you going to do that? You can say that, uh, you know uh, by the end of this particular course, you will be actually be able to do internship, right? Or in the case of Smack, you will be able to start your business, or possibly get funding for your business, right? Whenever you see advertisement of all the weight loss and the weight gain things, also what happens is that they don't tell you that we're going to help you lose weight. They actually make you envision that you have already lost weight, like if you join that particular course. That is what you have to do over there, right? And that is how your customer is actually gonna get into your brand, or probably invest into your brand by actually buying your services or the product, right? So that is what you have to figure out with your brand story. Am I clear with this? What I'm going to do, I'm going to send this PPT to you, so possibly you can just look at this particular statement, read about it and understand it, and use it for other companies itself. Probably you can just look at some brand story for a popular brands as well, right? Then comes brand colors. So again, you can look at the PPT for it. I'm just going to describe it to you a little. So it's a color wheel that is there. Every color wheel actually depicts something. So when I talk about sustainability, a green color would come into your mind. When I talk about happiness, possibly a yellow and orange color would come into your mind. When I talk about danger, red will come into your mind. When I talk of love, pink might come into your mind. If I talk about luxury, possibly a royal blue or a purple color would come into your mind, right? And if I talk about purity, or possibly a white color would come into your mind. Does it happen? Right? It does happen, right? So think of you as a brand, that what exactly is the purpose that you're serving, right? And then you decide these colors. So with the color wheel, you can decide that what is the kind of, see, it could be like when a customer see your brand, what is the kind of emotion you want them to feel, right? And based on that, you can decide a color, right? So let's say, or how do you want to look outside as well? So to your stakeholders as well. So if you talk of sustainability, you will choose a color green because that is what you're going to resonate it with, right? Or if you want to, you know, sound very appealing to children's, and yellow color works actually a lot, right? Yellow, a mix of orange would actually work a lot on kids, right? Now, as a marketer, you cannot do all, well, I mean, you can do it, but there is some data that you have to back yourself with. All these things you cannot just read in the PPT and understand, okay, fine. If I want the customer to feel comfortable, I probably use purple color. No. See that when you decide your customer, when you decide a target audience, learn about different patterns, learn about their buying patterns, right? Learn a little bit on their psychology aspect of it, and then you align your marketing to it, right? Right now it seems like a very small thing, or possibly when you will be working on your internship, you might not be using this much of theory that I'm teaching you over here. But when you want to, start something really from scratch and want to work on a very high investment project, this kind of things comes into play a lot. You will have to read a lot of research paper before delving into marketing part of it, right? So possibly this is for the next later chapter of your life, but even in your internships you can actually apply this knowledge, because if you read a little bit of articles and all these things, lot of patterns are very interrelated with one another, and if you can actually learn on the consumer behavior, you have cracked the code for marketing. All right, am I clear with this? Am I clear, guys? Any doubts do you have? Are you guys with me, or did you doze off?
Yeah,
Sorry, Keith, I couldn't hear you.
we are here, no doubt.
All right. Okay. Did you gain something from this lecture? Any doubt in that?
No doubt, sir.
No doubts? All right. Hasnal, same is the case for you. You're able to understand everything.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, a homework that I have for you guys is that look up the brands, see that why they have chosen a particular color, right? What is their mission, vision, value statement is, right? Check their taglines, check their logo, see if it's aligning with their mission, vision statement or not. And when you see their vision statement, as I told you, it's not really realistic. It's aspirational. See if it's really possible for them to achieve it or not. Right? All the things that I've talked about today in the PPT. Take a brand, analyze it from all the possible aspect of it. See their brand archetype, see the personality that they have, see the colors they have, right? And see how they are targeting their audiences, right? One more thing you can do is see the competitors as well. See that could you find a same common patterns between those brands or not, because for luxury brand there is a common pattern, for local brands there is a common pattern, no matter what kind of industry you're working into. Am I clear? You got the
Yes.
assignment, what you have to do?
Yes.
All right. I hope it's gonna help you actually a lot. Do it very diligently. You will be actually able to help you, reap your results into it. You will be the person who will be telling me what you have done. I would not ask you, right? So please do the research part of it. If you want, you can add it to your portfolio as well. That if you have done a very good research on this thing as well, or possibly you can talk about it in your interviews as well. So try to do that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Have a great day.
Bye.